My name is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is Thursday, February 2nd, 2016, and I'm interviewing John Brown for the Oklahoma Native Artists Project, sponsored by the Oklahoma Oral History Program at Oklahoma State University. John, you're Special Projects Coordinator for the Cultural Center and Archives here at Creek Nation in Okmulgee. You're also a bow maker and bow shooter with the Creek Bow Shooters Society, and you helped plan and execute the carving of some Dugout canoes that made a historic journey, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've lived at Hectorville, which is a little community just south of Tulsa, about 20 miles. I've been there all my life. Born and raised here. Yes.
What did your folks do for a living?
My dad was a teacher, which made it a little tough on me growing up. My mom worked at a little town in Bixby, the little town of Bixby, Citizen Security Bank. She worked there for 40-something years. Yeah, she's finally retired.
Wow. Brothers or sisters?
2 younger brothers, yes. Yep.
You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, yeah.
How about your grandparents on either side? What was your relationship with them?
I knew my grandma on my mom's side. I never knew my grandpa on that side. He passed away way before I was even born. On my dad's side, I knew my grandma and grandpa both. My grandpa was a medicine man. He was also a chief of Duck Creek Ceremonial Grounds. We still live on his allotted land. I have his old house. I bought his old place. We still have Duck Creek Ceremonial Grounds, where I'm an active member there, where we do our stomp dances. I was fortunate enough to know him. He died when I was fairly young. He was a bow maker, but I never got the chance to learn from him. I was just a little too young, but I'm glad I finally got to carry the tradition on. Yes.
So, what was your exposure? You're probably around UT quite a bit too, but to
Yes.
Creek language growing up.
Not much. That's one of the things that's kind of sad about a lot of this deal. Growing up, they didn't really want you doing it. My grandma went to a school in Eufaula as a child, where they still wash their mouth out with soap and slap their hands with the ruler for speaking their language. She was always afraid that would happen to us. Although when we were real little, they talked it to us. They said we could understand it, knew what they were talking about. But as we got older, she really wanted us to be in in today's society and grow and be productive and do good. So she was always afraid some of that stuff would happen to us if we did that. So a lot of my aunts and uncles didn't speak the language either, just for that reason.
Did you have a little, like a rabbit bow or a little boy's bow at all growing up, or not?
Not a traditional. I always had the little fiberglass bows, and then of course making them out of sticks. They never really lasted. They would break and stuff, but there was always more sticks to make another one out of. But yeah, I really loved it. Always tried to hunt with them, but I've always, my grandpa loved to fish and hunt, and so I grew up with that. All my uncles did too, and so that was just part of our life.
And were they shooting a bit from traditional bows, any of your uncles that your grandpa made?
Yes, some of my older uncles, the older in the family, they did it with my grandpa. They really didn't actually hunt animals per se, as much as they shot fish. They did a lot of shooting of fish with them, but they did hunt with them some, I'm sure.
What other traditional practices or arts might have inspired you growing up?
Well, growing up with the ceremonial grounds was always a big part of my life. We they had their stickball games, but the bow and arrows really, you know, as a kid, you always you associate Native Americans with bows and arrows, and so it was easier for me to make my own bow and arrow and play with them and use them than it was to get access to guns and stuff. They didn't want to let me loose in the woods with them.
Did you go to school around Hectorville then?
Yeah, there's a little school called Liberty Mounds. Started kindergarten there and graduated. Yeah.
What were your favorite subjects?
You know, I was really interested in math. I liked math and a little bit of the history. You know, just always interested about what happened way back then. You know.
How much? What kind of a place was there for expressing Muskogee identity or OOHRP identity when you were in school?
There really wasn't none. There's a handful. There's a group of OOHRPs out there, and it's because of the allotted lands that they got, you know, and so there was a big group. But as far as school and being Native in there, we really weren't. We was just one of the kids going to school there, and they all, a lot of my friends, and they still do call me Indian. You know, that was kind of a nickname that they gave me. They always thought it was pretty neat, but you know, we really never considered ourselves any different than anybody else.
So, where did you go to high school?
Liberty Mounds. It's it's a kindergarten through high school, and that's started kindergarten, graduated there. Yeah.
What happened after high school?
You know, that's just like anybody else. Mom and dad, especially my dad, being a teacher. Through high school, I had to take typing. I had to make sure that I had all of my Englishes, all of my sciences, all of my math, everything you need to go to college. But I just didn't want to go. I thought, I'm going to go out and get me a job and make all this money. But I learned real quick that I should have went to school. So I went to work, and my dad was, although he was a diesel instructor, he taught diesel at Botex around the state of Oklahoma, and so I had the mechanical background all the way through my years growing up. The vehicle that my mom and dad bought me, I had to work on it, you know, to keep it going. And so I enjoyed mechanics, and that was the field that I chose.
You chose, right. So, at what point did you end up working for Creek Nation? You came in a different job, of course.
I did. The actual bow making was what actually made me want to come to work for the Nation. I was lucky enough to do a lot of traveling. I've traveled all over the world, been to a lot of places and seen a lot of things. At the time when I started with Mike Berryhill, who was my teacher, I had been laid off, and was getting unemployment and saved up quite a bit of money in the previous job, and so I had a lot of time at that time to spend with Mike and learn the bow making. And so as we was going through it, he was looking for somebody to take over. We call it the Muskogee Chukadoxi Sichoge Imidele Gida, which is the Muskogee Creek Bow Shooters Society. And he had started that group and started that shoot, but he was looking for somebody to take over. He was, you know, in his 60s, and he had picked me out for some reason, and I kept telling him, I'm not the one, I'm just now getting started. There's no way that I can teach that. I can barely make these, you know, but he kept saying, no, you're the one. You're the one that's going to do this. And I thought, man, that's a big commitment too, you know. I enjoyed it. It does take a lot of your time, but when it's something you love, you really don't, you know, you don't worry about it, and you just do it. And so anyway, I when we started making it and he wanted me to take that over, with the Nation, all of my jobs before, I had to either work weekends or holidays, all this overtime. And with the Nation, there was a chance to work, get a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, have my weekends open to where I could do a lot of this stuff. And so that's when I really started pursuing trying to get a job at the Nation. And luckily I did. I got on with the Federal Roads Program. My mechanical background and my heavy equipment operating came into place, and it really helped me out. I got on there. I worked over there for 4 years. And then they had an opening in the cultural department, which really just fit everything that I was doing. I'm a special projects coordinator now with the Cultural Center and Archives Department. It really makes it easy for me to do a lot of bow shoots for kids, interact with our youth, our Muskogee Creek Nation College. They've started a archery team at the college. We have 4 girls and 2 boys right now that's currently on it, and we're actually in another month going to go to Rapid City, South Dakota, and compete against some other colleges. So we're really looking forward to that. And the Nation has really supported me real good on this, and so now we have the opportunity to get this stuff out where kids can actually see it, where they may not have the chance to. So the Nation's been good to me.
What year was it about when you and Mike first kind of started talking about when you first met him? And
we're looking at about 2010, 2009, somewhere around in there. They had actually, excuse me, had started the corn stalk shoots here. They were having, the Creek Nation always has a Creek Nation festival in June every year, and I'd heard about them having this traditional bow shoot, and so I came down to see it. I was really interested because of the bows. I always wanted to make one of these bows or just have one.
Right.
And so that gave me the opportunity to come down. That's how I met Mike.
And you mentioned traveling too. I just wanted to follow up a bit on that. Was that with your mechanic work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my mechanic field and also the operating field.
Okay.
Right.
What a great background to have. So, and the Bow Shooting Society had been in existence for about how long?
When I got started with them,
yeah,
they'd been for probably 3 years.
3 years, okay.
Yeah, they'd been shooting.
Thank you. So, can you describe the process of making your first bow?
It was.
Under Mike's
it took me forever.
Eyes, I guess.
And now I can do one in a day if I really apply myself and stay at it. I can do one in a day. My first one took me probably about 6 to 8 weeks. I was so scared to mess it up. You know, wood is so less forgiving than anything that you work with, because once you take it out, you can't put it back. And so I really, and I wanted it to work, and I was so scared I was going to do something wrong that I took my time. But yeah,
were you happy with it?
I really was. I was tickled to death. I showed it off. I was really happy with it. I was.
So, what did you make it from, and where did you get your material for your first bow?
Mike had taken us to the woods and showed us, and we call it bow dark. Everybody usually around this area calls it bow dark. I think the actual term for it is Osage orange. If you look it up, it's under Osage orange. Dolani in our language is yellow wood. That's what we would have called it. But they made them out of hickory. They made cedar, black locust. There's a lot of different things, and I've made them out of all the different types of woods. But bow dark holds up like it's the best. Holds up a whole lot better than the other woods. So now that's all I teach is the bow dark making, and that's all that I use is bow dark wood.
So I read that people sometimes they'll pick out their trees in December and then cut them in February.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if that had to do maybe with, because the trees are sort of more asleep during that time? Maybe the sap levels are
It's more the sap.
different?
Traditionally, what I've been told, what I've been taught, they look for 3 days that are cold, that are under 32 degrees, freezing type, and in 2 we do it on a new moon. That was what we've been told. Come to find out, if you do research on it, new moon phases causes the sap to come down in the roots. So does the cold weather. But in today's times in society, you don't always have that opportunity. You know, you've only got 3 or 4 days in there in the new moon phase, and in Oklahoma, you don't know if it's going to be 20 degrees or 70 degrees through the winter. We still try to do it in the winter. We start looking for our wood November, December, and if it has been cold, we'll start cutting in December, and we'll cut clear up until the end of February.
And you'll go as a group?
Yes, we do. We try to take new ones, new people that's interested out, but as a bow group, we go out, we cut our wood. I do a lot of it just on my own, and I love to deer hunt too. I deer hunt every year, so it's always a special event for me because I can deer hunt, plus I can look for new wood too. Yes.
And and I was wondering if it's getting, or if Mike had talked about that too, because we're all noticing changes in the land.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's getting harder to find your materials.
Bow dark, the interesting thing about bow dark, one of the biggest things is, and what we found out, 1 out of every 100 trees, let's say, you can make a bow out of. You can't just go to a bow dark tree and expect to get a piece of wood out of that to make a bow. It has to be tall, it has to be straight, it has to be a certain size. We do what they call reading the bark. You got to make sure it doesn't twist and different things. So there's a lot of wood out there. Another problem that we have is access to it. Not a lot of people want you coming in and cutting on their place. The Creek Nation, we've been real fortunate in the last 10 years. Creek Nation has some land down by Lake Eufaula. They call it Hannah Farms. And there was a big grove in there. But for 10 years, it's been getting picked through. And so it's kind of, all the good wood's gone. What we have left is small. We're waiting for it to grow up to where it's big enough to cut, and then we'll start going back in there. But bow dark, we're lucky because it does grow all over Oklahoma, Kansas,
Right.
you know, so it's out there. It's just hard sometimes getting permission to get it cut.
So talk about your arrows a bit. You must have you had probably made your own arrows, but different kind under Mike for this kind of shooting.
Yeah, as far as the cornstalk shoots, we use more of cedar shafts, store-bought cedar shafts. Now we'll put our own tip on them, put our own fletching, colors, different things like that. But we do use a river cane. We make all of our arrows out of river cane. That traditionally that's what they use, river cane. We have done some out of dogwood, different. We've experimented with some different types of woods, and we've even had one that we used out of bow dark. But river cane is usually what we teach in our classes is river cane, just because that was traditionally what we know that they used.
Mm-hmm. And how about the tips and the fletching?
The fletching is always turkey feathers. We use the wing feathers. There's been a lot of discussion in our group with Mike Berryhill. Left wing feather for a right-handed shooter, right hand wing for a left-handed shooter, the different curves, the natural curves of it, stuff like that. Over time, we experimented with both, and to be honest, we don't see that much difference in the way it shoots. But we do use all turkey feathers for our fletching. So our tips, I have yet to start my flint napping. Now I'm just starting
I
in
was
it.
wondering.
I'm trying it. My little brother does it. I've got a good friend, Kurt Sewell, that he's the best. He sure makes some pretty stuff. We use a lot of his stuff on our arrows. I make a lot of arrows for different people. If they let us in on their place to get river cane and things like that, I'll make them an arrow, for a gift, for an offering, trade. And I'll always use Kurt for the because he's good. So I can get one that looks like an arrowhead, but I'm not quite there yet. It's a learning experience for sure.
So, what does make a Muskogee bow different from other southeastern bows?
I don't
Is there
think that
anything?
there's, it would be hard to say, this is a Creek bow, this is a Cherokee bow, this is a Chickasaw bow. They were all pretty much the same. Now, Mike always felt like that some of the tips, the diamond shape, were a Creek design and a Cherokee design, where the Uchis had like half of a diamond. And so that was kind of a way, because my grandpa was Uchie, my grandma was Creek, so I'm there with both. My first bow I made with one end a Creek style and one end a Uchie style, so I thought that was a good way to do that. But as far as the bows, the D bows is what we refer to them. Most of them, what you find, what you see, old pictures and things of that nature were mostly the D bows, short little bows.
How about differences between like the plains bows?
Yeah, they're the plains, southeastern plains, southwestern plains. They were a lot like our D bows too. They're real similar. Theirs seemed to be a little bit shorter, and I don't really know for sure why. We speculate a lot of them rode horses and they could shoot them riding a horse. Maybe the way that they hunted. Brush bows we call them here. When you're hunting in real thick stuff and you need something smaller to get through the brush and hunt with. So I don't really know for sure. Yeah, it's just kind of where you were at and what you made, what you had to make it with.
Right. So in terms of the Bow Shooters Society, did they always include women from the beginning?
Once again, that's been a lot of talk. We've had some in-depth discussions. What we've been told, women weren't allowed to touch bows way back. Hundreds of years ago, that was a man's tool. That was something that they used for hunting and protection and things, and they wasn't supposed to touch them. But we don't have anybody today to tell us for sure. We just go what some of our elders have told us. Today's deal, we include our women in everything that we do. They're a big part of it. We show them a lot of respect. Poggy Freeman is one of my members of the bow group. She's actually been with the bow group longer than I have. Bear Freeman, another one that was in there. Their sister Andra. I include them in everything that we do. I think they're just as big a part of it as we are. They teach it right along with me. So, yeah.
What are some aspects of bow shooting that people might not be aware of?
I don't know quite how to answer that. As far as the cornstalk shoots, we tell people when we tell them we shoot around 100 yards, they think, oh my, but it's really not that hard. Once you get out and do it, you'll be really surprised how close you can get. As long as we've been doing it, we don't hit every time. We got a big 3-foot target, 3x3-foot target, but we don't hit every time. Nobody hits every time, so.
And you practice the first Saturday of each month.
We hold a bow shoot the first Saturday of every month. The Cherokees hold one. They've got a bow group, a cornstalk group. They shoot the third Saturday of every month.
Do you come back and forth
Yeah,
for
we try
practice?
it used to be a lot more, but yeah, we go down and help them, they come down and help us. Yeah, we've got some good friends. It's still competitive with them, but we've got some real good friends, so we have fun with it.
How long does it take to kind of develop a pretty good technique?
That differs from person to person. I seem to picked it up a lot quicker, but I had shot recurves and compounds for a long time, so but somebody just getting started, sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out how to pull your string with a few fingers, to hold it, to stand a certain way, to just get that feel. So that differs from person to person.
And how about, how much does the language come up in terms of practice?
Not much. There was a time, me and a few of the female shooters, Poggy and Bear, and we were taking language classes, and so in our cornstalk game, it's a game of points, and so you have to count, and so we kind of adopted count and creek just to try to help us along. So, but there's not a lot of us that speak the language out there, and definitely not fluent in it. So we do what we can when we can.
How often are there sort of intertribal, more formal competitions, not practices, but how often are there?
The Chickasaws have 2 a year. They refer to their shoots or their celebrations down there as reunions, Chickasaw reunion they call it, and their little festival. That's when our big one is here, our Creek Festival in June. We'll have a big shoot. The Cherokees is always at their Cherokee Holiday. That's their big shoot. So anytime there's a big event with the tribe, then usually there's a big shoot with them through.
How have you done at some of the competitions?
I've been lucky enough to win a few of them. I'm the only creek that's won their own shoot. I do have one of them wins in there. I'm happy about that. Yeah. The Cherokees are some real good shooters, and so there's a few of them that usually take that first place spot. But I've got lucky enough to win a couple.
Do you ever get anybody from Central or out, Oklahoma or some other tribes that aren't in the southeastern group?
We do. They put out, especially the Creek Nation, they put out a flyer and send it out. We have the internet stuff now, and so we do. We get some people from out of state that'll call that are interested about it. Last year we had somebody from California that called. They knew about the festival. They had Creek ancestry. They were wanting to come out, and they seen the deal about the bow shoot and had kids and asked about it. And we tried to have loaner bows and arrows for
that's great.
just that things like that come up. And so they came out, and it was real good to meet them. We had some people, some Sioux, Apache that's found out about it and came out and shot with us. So yeah, it's always a plus when we can get somebody from far away to come.
As coordinator of special projects, what are some other things you've been involved in besides the bow shooting?
We do the Atlatl toss. We do the blow darts. We have just started the chunky game. I've just got a disc made. Yeah. We'll show some of that here in a minute. But our youth is really what brought that up, and they're interested in it. Although it was talked about in the bow group for years about maybe trying to start it, until I got the interest in that, we haven't, and we've yet to have one, but we have the stuff now to do it. So we're fixing to get started on that this spring. The Creek Nation always has an event called Spring Celebration. It happens in March. It's the week that all the kids are on spring break, and they have a deal here at the dome at our field over there, where we'll put all these events out. We'll have stickball. We'll have they'll try to have a stomp dance, I'm sure. but all of our games there.
And one of your projects was making a couple of traditional dugout canoes. How did that come about?
We're really happy about that. I'm just really excited. We're looking at it as a revitalization. After the removal, there was really no need for a canoe when they come to Oklahoma, and so for 200 years, we don't know of any canoes by the creeks that was made here. Now they could have been, but we just don't know about it. So that too was part of Mike Berryhill's vision. He had talked about doing a canoe. He always thought it'd be neat if the group could do that, and we had talked about burning it out with him, doing a burnout canoe. But he passed away before he got to see it. But I was approached. I wasn't working for the cultural department then. I was still with Federal Roads. Two of the gentlemen, Chris Asbell and Justin Giles, had the idea to do it. They had a little extra funding, so they contacted me and wanted to know if the bow group would be interested in maybe doing that, because we do the woodwork with the bows and stuff. And Chris Asbell knew about Mike talking about it, and so of course we jumped on the opportunity. We got to go down. We actually got to go to Alabama, back to our homeland, and get a tree from there. And so we had it cut.
How did you find your tree?
It was found for us. We had
Okay.
put the word out to a gentleman named Butch Fuller down there, who helped us through it, because none of us had ever done one. So he kind of coached us through the process, and we knew that we wanted either a cypress or a poplar tree, because that's what traditionally they made them out of, and this one happened to be poplar. It was big enough to get two 16-foot canoes out of it. This was a huge tree. And so we helped Butch with his at Horseshoe Bend National Military Park in Alexander City, Alabama, and it's still in their museum, and it's a centerpiece for their museum. The other one we brought back here to Okmulgee, and members of the bow group helped me, and we did one here. So now we have one of our own.
That's great. Okay, and can you talk a little bit about the float trip that you took in the canoe?
Yeah.
And when you first, I imagine you tried it out before you started your float trip too, so.
Yeah, we took it to Okmulgee Lake.
Okay.
People were asking me, "Are you sure it's going to float?" Well, I said, "Well, yeah, I know it's going to float. It's wood." My worries was it may not float upright, that we may get in it, it may roll over. I mean, there was all these variables that we were worried about. But one of the deals that I made with Justin and Chris when we were doing this canoe, or when they asked us to do it, I said we would do it because it was originally meant to be for an educational purpose. They wanted to build it, make it, and just have it set for kids to come see, for all creeks, all people to come see. But I told them if we did it, I wanted to take it to the water. I just didn't want to do it. It's just like our bows. We make our bows to use, and we use them. And so to do this canoe, I was going to float it. Now, after we floated it, then the Creek Nation could have it and do whatever they wanted to it. But we would do it, but we wanted to float it. So we all went out to Okmulgee Lake one day, and Pogie and Bear and all of them was with me, all the ones that helped work on it. We took it out, and it floated. So
What a great moment.
at first we only got it in, say, waist high water, just in case, but we were really surprised. It was really stable, and so we took it out. We went way out in the middle of the lake and back, and so
There were three of you?
yes, me and Pogie took it out first. Yeah, we thought, well, we're the makers, and so if something happens out there, it'll happen to us. But we managed to put, at one time, I think we put 6 adults in it, and it still floated just fine. The only problem with that many people, it's when one person moves, it will rock back and forth, and so you got people trying to compensate, and so we had a lot of fun with that. A big laugh at one time where we about tipped it over, but yeah, it really did good. We were really happy with it.
And had you waterproofed it with anything? I forgot to ask.
We sealed
You
it.
did the dugout
Now,
with-
traditionally, they would have used bear grease.
Mm-hmm.
They would have put it on it to help it from cracking. But then, too, they would have kept it in water. So we had a different outlook on it here because it was going to be stored and put up. And so I went ahead and got some sealer and sealed it to try to help preserve it and maybe keep it from cracking. It cracked on us big time in the middle. And that's just a lot of wood does that. And so one end of it had a pretty good sized split in it, but I repaired it with pine pitch like they would have done then. They would have had the same problems back then. Wood is wood, and it dries and it'll crack. So I patched it, and everybody was worried about my patch, but it held up good. So we were
Now,
happy.
it cracked before your float trip or after?
It did,
Before,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. When we were working on it, it started cracking, and
So talk about the float trip a little bit, because that's a pretty, just going back to the old country and then going down that river, that must have described that experience a little.
You know, the whole experience of Alabama, let me say first, and I still do, as many times as I've been to Alabama, I still have this feeling. You got mixed emotions when you cross that state line. Seems like it's when it mostly happens to me, and why I'm there, for the simple reason of the removal. You know, I was brought up, you can't have hatred in your heart. You have to let things like that go. But at the same time, when you go back and for what happened, you can't help but have some of them feelings. And so it's especially the first time I went there to Horseshoe Bend, I had these feelings that I couldn't describe. It just, it still does. The sacrifices that were made, there. We overcame. We are part of that. Our ancestors did a lot of things there for us to still be alive and still be here in Oklahoma. So a part of Alabama and a part of going back is to show them, to give them the respect, honor them, that we didn't go away. Their efforts, the things that they died for, we're still living, we're still prospering, we're still moving on, and I think that's what they would have wanted. So it's to even think about it today is tough, but we can't dwell on the past. We still have to hold our heads high. We still have to continue on. So the opportunity to go back and float down the same rivers that some of my ancestors did was really good. And Poggy, her and I talked about it on times that we were down there. We were working on a canoe. Her and I said, it would be so neat to take our canoe and float down these rivers again like they did. We didn't have the opportunity to take ours, but we did go down and take a float trip. We went down to Tallapoosa. We made a good friend.
Oh, so you went in a different...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We met a good friend down there. His name's Charles Chambers, and he made arrangements for us to take a little 5-mile, 7-mile trip. And so that's what we did. We took that. Now, we've got plans we're getting 2 more trees from Alabama. We're getting cypress this time. We're getting these, and we're going to do these canoes. But these we are going to take back. We're going to take them back, and we're going to float them down the river. Poggy and I both have talked about it, and that's a goal that that we're wanting to do. So hopefully here in a couple of years, we'll be able to go down and actually float that river in some canoes that we made.
That
So,
would be wonderful.
yeah.
I wanted to ask were there people, did people come watch you? Did you have any
We did.
spectators?
And I'll have to get their names, and you'll have to forgive me. I forget. There's friends of, I forget. They have a little museum down there. There was some ladies that, to our surprise, at the end of our canoe trip, when we come climbing out of the riverbanks and we're climbing up to the top there, they had a table set out with food. They had a spread that you just wouldn't believe, and they had cooked for us. So they were so happy that Creeks from Oklahoma that had ties, their ancestors had ties to that area, was coming back, and how we wanted to come back and see that, and they just wanted to treat us, and I'll be forever grateful. Yeah, that was special. That really was.
Special gesture. So you've also participated in some other paddles with other nations. I don't know what.
We were a year ago. We were invited. A gentleman, a good friend of mine, a Creek citizen, Kenneth Johnson. He's an artist. He lives in New Mexico now. He does that. He was contacted about somebody. He was telling them about our revitalization of our canoes here, and he had told a group up there that we were doing a canoe here, and we were invited. A Samish tribe up there, Rosie Caillou, Samish woman, elder woman up there, invited us to come up and take part in this Nisqually canoe journey. Now their journey up there in their canoes, they're a lot bigger than our canoe, and they go like 500 and 600 miles.
Wow.
Through the ocean into the state of Washington all the way down. And so we were invited, he and I were invited to go up and be a part of that. Now we didn't do the 500 miles with them. We did the last 20 miles with them, but that was quite an honor to be able to be asked to go up, to be a part of that, to talk to them, and take that journey with them. So that's how the canoe paddle project got started. Philip Hilaire is Lummi tribe, Jay Bowen, Upper Skagit, I believe is the name of his tribe. Philip Hilaire was helping with a Native American Children's Indian Center in Portland, Oregon. They were trying to raise money to help keep this little center alive and for the kids up there. And so he had asked different tribes that took part in that canoe journey to make a paddle, and they were going to auction it off. So he had contacted Kenneth. Kenneth contacted me. Now Kenneth had done a little bit of wood carving and designs, and I'm just not that quite of an artist, but I could do the paddle. I did one for our canoe, and I thought it would be neat. When we got our canoe, I kept some of the extra wood that we had, and so I had some big pieces. I had built a paddle for our canoe, and Kenneth knew about it and asked if I could do another one, and so I did. I did another one, and it's out of the same wood as our canoe, which made it special to us. And so I got the canoe, the paddle, and sent it to Kenneth, and then he did wood carving in it. And then we sent it up and donated it for the auction, which it brought a little over $3,000. We were really tickled with that, but we was glad just to be, for one thing, asked to come up with that tribe to do the canoe journey, and it was our honor to send that up there. I mean, that's we still owe quite a bit more for that. Yeah, quite a journey.
That is wonderful. What is the most important thing for young people to know about bow shooting or similar cultural activities, other cultural activities?
To me, the way I look at it and the way I go about it, and I can't say it's just me too, because I want to include the bow group, because they are big help, and I couldn't do all this without them. I really couldn't. but I really think the most important thing, for one thing, is just showing them what they had to use back then. A lot of them's never seen it. I know as a kid, you know, I even though my grandpa had them, you know, it was years before I even got to see it. So they don't get to see it and how things made and why they made them and why they used them and what importance it was to them for not only protection but to feed their families and all that and so just that being a part of their ancestry too, I think is a big plus for the kids to know.
Where do you see the cultural center and the archives? How do you see that developing in the future?
One of the things that really helps with the cultural center is we're able to do this with our youth. So one of that would be one of the most important ways to keeping this traditional ways alive is with our young people. That's the only way to keep it going. History tells us that even our tribes back then, as kids growing up, there were all these games that they played. But it wasn't for them just to have something to do. It was how the elders were picking the future leaders that were going to come up. And so that right there, with us being able to help, maybe some of these games will help these kids along.
Bring the leaders out.
Bring them leaders out, and to keep it alive.
Well, we're gonna talk a bit more. We're gonna pause a minute and take a good look at the blow darts and the arrows and the chunky stone and the bows. And I'll have you talk a little bit about the tools maybe that were used. And then we're going to go see the Dugout Canoe.
Okay, great.
Okay, John, would you like to tell us, you made a couple of really small replica canoes?
I did, yeah. We, you know, as Native people, they didn't want to waste anything, and they tried to make use of everything. Well, we had some pieces of wood and stuff left over from the canoe, the way that we dug out the canoe. And so one day I had some pieces, and I made a little mini replica, we'll call it, of our canoe. It's the same shape as kind of what we did, and I was just doing it for fun, just sitting around the house, and then a coworker seen it, and man, it just took off. Everybody wanted one, and so the little sizes that you see there, one of them's for a business card. Somebody wanted one that said, "Oh man, I could put that on my desk and put my business cards in there," and then the other one is just, you know, it's the sizes that are just actually the pieces of wood. That's the length that the wood actually was, and so I'll just, you know, make the little deals. But you talk about, I would have had no idea that they got so popular. Everybody
So
around
popular.
the nation wants one when they see them. So, but and to them being a piece of wood out of the same tree that our canoe was made out of, this adds a little extra. You know, they got a piece of that. So
absolutely.
So that's the little mini canoes.
And what were you carving with? What'd you use?
You know, we do the draw knives. I mean, we just it's hard to say what they are. Some of them are handmade tools. I've got a friend, a good friend of mine, Gary Ashmore, that even made ads and different types of. He's made me a draw knife. He's made me a little carving knife. He's just, you talk about, and he don't just do the metal work. I mean, he makes beautiful knives. He does these Atlatls. He does them Atlatl handles. He's a bow maker. He's an arrow maker. He's one of the best. He was good friends with Mike Berryhill too. We still in contact with him. He had an accident and he's not able to shoot with us much anymore, but when he does feel good, he does still come down. But yeah, I just want to throw his name in there too. He's a real special guy.
I'm going to turn around and try to get a little bit of the tips on some of the bows. And then you're working on the bows with draw knives too?
Yes, we still try to do the draw knives and the files or rasp and sandpaper, and we have tillering tools that we would scrape down. This it's why we've got that over there. This little deal, these triangles, as I was talking about earlier, are kind of a creek and Cherokee style. The ones that are kind of half diamond shaped. That's kind of the Uchi, and this happens to be the first one that I made that I had both of them on. I just want to try to get that in there. But,
yeah. Okay, and I'll move over here. We can see the arrows better, and maybe talk about the blow dart. You've got your cane there. It looks like.
Yeah, these are all river cane. They're heated and straightened and turned down, and these are our turkey fletching feathers, and it's got sinew tied around it. These are some of the arrowheads that, as I was saying earlier, Kurt Sewell, a good friend of ours, he's Creek and Cherokee, but he, like I said, when it comes to making these, and especially when I'm going to give them as gifts, I like the best, and Kurt is the best at it, I feel like.
Right.
So these are just, Gary Ashmore made helped make these little ends right here, and some of these arrows. He helps with all of our classes. He when we put on a class, he'll come down and he'll help, and we're real thankful for that too,
That's neat. How about the Atlatl? Can you talk about
the Atlatl? Has really taken off with our older kids, our high school and our Creek Nation College. The shafts are still river cane, with turkey fletching feathers on them. But that's been a real big hit with our older kids, because
are they having competitions sort of?
We've had little tournaments out here. We held the first annual Muskogee Creek Nation Youth Olympics here this last November, and we had a bow shooting, we had a blow darts, we had the Atlatl toss out there, and them kids really had a good time with it. And surprisingly, a girl won. She could throw farther than most of the boys in the Atlatl, and I want you to know, she threw that, it was like almost 80 yards. I couldn't believe it. I can't throw it that far. And she just slung it out there. So she was just a little old, skinny girl too, but it's all in technique,
It's right.
And, but yeah, we really have a lot of fun with that, with the Atlatls. This is some of the,
that's cool.
Some of the handles that we use to throw them with.
Right.
And these are just these are boat arc.
Okay. Okay.
Boat arc and deer antler on them.
But you got a dark finish on one and a lighter finish on the other.
And that's the characteristics of the boat arc.
Boat arc too.
Yeah,
okay.
The bows are like that too.
Yeah, I see all the variations.
Over time, especially if they get in a lot of sunlight, they just get real dark.
Yeah,
and
look like walnut. Yeah. They're just pretty.
Yeah, the creator sure knew what he was doing. He worked with that.
And can you talk about the chunky finally, and then we'll go on to see the canoes.
Yeah, the chunky stone that we have, this particular one right here is wood.
Okay.
Because we are doing it so much with the kids and we're rolling it.
Oh, yeah.
Our archives department, our museum actually has stone chunky, or chunky stones that are made out of, it would have been granite or a hard type of quartz type material. But we didn't want to break them.
Right.
And with this being wood, and then too, you got to remember, you're dealing with kids, and they're going to roll them, and they'll roll them hard, especially if you get some competitive kids. And so we made a replica out of wood just so we could use it all the time. But we have plans. We have made contact with a gentleman in Alabama where we can go back and get some quartz. And we
Oh,
hope
okay.
to make a real chunky stone out of the quartz like they would have had back then.
Oh, that'll be great.
This one happens to be 6 inches. All the research that we've done, the museums, the different ones that we've seen that they found uncovered in Alabama and stuff, we're pretty close to 6 inches. Now they've got some as small as 2 inches, and as big as 8 inches, but that seemed to be the most common
size.
6, and so that's kind of why we chose that 6. So
Yeah. All right. Okay, well, we're going to pause it a minute and we'll look at the canoe next. Okay, so John, we're looking at the canoe now, and when you hollowed it out, what were you working with? And
now we did use modern tools on a lot of on our first couple of cuts on this. We used a chainsaw to make some diagonal cuts in it. We did it in a few stages. We left a centerpiece in it so it wouldn't warp as it was drying, but we only took like a quarter of it out the first time, and it was for drying out purposes. The log was still wet when we started on this, and so we didn't want it to dry too much too quick for cracking purposes, but as you can see, it still did a little bit of cracking on it. I was able to fill it with pine pitch. It's a natural deal. It's what they would have used back then. But we managed to patch it up, and when we floated it didn't leak, so we must have got it right.
right, it's beautiful. And I wanted to show a little bit of the light and dark of the poplar here, and then we're going to look at the paddle that you made to go with it. Oh, that's gorgeous.
So the paddle was made out of a piece of wood. When we first had the tree cut, and we had taken it to a sawmill to kind of square a few things up, and so they were just pieces left over that I brought back, and so I used them to make the paddle. We've made 2 paddles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how is working with the Bow Shooters Society, and also, doing projects like these? I guess, how have they impacted you personally?
Everything we do as far as the bow group, we always say we're not really a group, we're a family. And these type of projects that we come across, we all get together, we have a good time, we tease each other about it. All natives tease each other and laugh, and so we've really had a good time with this project. It took a little while, a lot of work, but a lot of fun at the same time.
And I understand you have another one planned.
We do. We actually have 2 planned. This one is poplar. Traditionally, they made them out of poplar and cypress. We've located a couple of cypress trees. We're trying to make sure we can get them, but hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to go back to Alabama and get 2 cypress logs that we're going to make 2 more canoes out of. So.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about that, and thank you for your good work, and thank you for your time today.
Well, I really appreciate y'all coming down. Thank you very much.
This is just a quick postscript. Because we forgot to look at the darts for the blow dart gun. And they are made again, John, from?
Yes, we use a plant called thistle. It's a thistle plant. They come out, they bloom twice a year. We usually wait till the second bloom. It usually happens around August. So we harvest them in August, we dry them out, and that's what we use to tie on our darts. Typically they would have probably been a lot bigger back then, but we make these, and the kids can shoot these. We put on little blow dart games for children, and they really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun for them.
All right.